Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mentors Connect podcast. I'm your host Chloe, and today on the podcast we have a very, very special guest. This is Joon, and she is the head of tax and governance global at CSL. And if you go searching on the internet, you'll find out that CSL consistently is one of the top companies in Australia, has major companies, done amazing things in Australia and worldwide. So very fortunate to have Joon on, and thank you, Joon, so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to get us started, and I was hoping you could tell us a bit about yourself, perhaps what you were interested in when you were younger.
Yeah, sure. So maybe just to start and introduce who I am, as Chloe said, I'm the regional head of tax and global governance here at CSL. So CSL is a global biotech group that offers life-saving medicines for patients who have rare diseases and other sort of unmet medical needs. I'm also a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and I'm a current council member serving on Geelong Grammar School Board in Australia. So in terms of my background and what I was interested in growing up, so I kind of like to think of myself as a global citizen, really. I was born in Malaysia. I grew up through a combination of the US, Malaysia, and then New Zealand. And then, now through my career, I've spent a bit of time in Australia. I had really, I would say, diverse interests as a kid. I really enjoyed lots of different subjects, I guess you could call it that. Everything from the arts to accounting to science. And I really enjoyed a lot of extracurricular activities, especially. So music was a big part of that. I did drama for a little bit.
Very involved.
Yeah, I swam. And I think, a lot of that was really helpful because it helped me to really think about what I might be interested in future. And I think that's really important, to become a balanced human being, I guess, to make sure that you're exploring everything that's available to you. So yeah, I had pretty diverse interests. And I also had a lot of leadership opportunities. So I was really lucky through school to get involved in some things that I guess you could call them soft skill development. So at school, there was an opportunity to be part of the anti-harassment team. So when I was in high school, I did that, and that taught me how to listen. So, a lot of active listening skills. The team was built around this concept of being able to do peer mediations. So for students that had conflicts with each other, how to deal with that, and working through some of the skills that you need to deal with those issues. So I think for me, yeah, my background is very diverse, very spread out family all through the world. Had a very diverse extended family as well. They were involved in all sorts of different industries and different jobs. So I think, growing up, I always felt like there was a lot of different examples around me that, you could I could have chosen any path, and there would be opportunities available, I guess. So I was very lucky in that sense, I think.
I definitely also call yourself a global citizen. How you mentioned that before, that's for sure. But it's also cool. And obviously you do a lot of things, not only in your career and growing up, but also outside of work and socially. So I think that's really amazing. So now continuing on, I wanted to ask you, as this is called Mentors Connect, who was a bit of a mentor for you, like, now career-wise in your career as a young person for you?
Yeah, sure. So I can think of two people in particular, I think, that led me down my current path. But I would say maybe before I speak about them specifically, I did have, I think I mentioned before, I did have a lot of really good examples around me of the fact that you could switch careers or you could do something as part of your work, but also have interests outside of your work as part of your specific job title and still be able to experience other things. And so to me, growing up, that was a big impact, I think, on how I viewed my career going forward, that, it wasn't just necessarily about fitting in one box, one job, one path all the way through. And my godmother in particular, she was someone that was a lawyer. She ran her own law firm, but she was very interested in the arts. And she spent a lot of her time through work, almost using her skill set as a lawyer and in business to apply that to working on various projects and raising funds through not-for-profits. She used to organize concerts every year and fundraisers, and she'd invite all these dancers from overseas to come and perform. And so, there was just this beautiful amalgamation of her love of the arts and then also her skill set as a lawyer to kind of bring those two things together. So she was a big influence in my life. And then specifically in the tax world, I think my aunt, she really, I think, opened my eyes to what tax was all about. I think I had a earlier introduction. I think a lot of people still don't really understand what it means when you work in tax professionally, but she really helped to make me understand what tax was all about. She used to work for the tax authority in Malaysia when she was sort of younger, and then she moved in-house into one of the big four consulting firms, and she was a strong part of their learning and development team. So she was a strong influence on me, because I think she always said to me that it's not, it's again, coming back to this theme of it's not just about the job title and what she's doing, but her biggest, her love of her role was all about the fact that she was able to continue to learn, but also, share her knowledge with people and have that ongoing conversation. And, she's someone that really inspired me, I think, to get into the education sector, because that was something that I was really interested in. But yeah, those are I'd say, two biggest influences in getting me to where I'm today.
They definitely sound like two inspiring women. So that's amazing. So now continuing on, did you envision when you were younger that you would work in one of the best companies, one of the most recognized and trusted companies in the world? CSL is just amazing.
It is amazing. And no, I did not. I think growing up, I really had no idea going through school what I was wanting to do or going to be. I think even, up until getting into university, I didn't even know that I wanted to study the subjects that I did in university. So it was really much I don't know. I think I'm very lucky because I was able to just go with what I was interested in at school. And luckily for me, stuff that I was interested in was stuff that I think when you go into what you're interested in, that helps you achieve as well. And so that was something that I guess helped me then further my path. But yeah, I definitely did not think that I would end up at CSL, and I don't even, I don't think I ever really had a clear picture of back then, even what profession I would be in. So it's certainly not something I had a clear target on.
But no, that's amazing that you followed your passions and found, your way to this amazing role at this amazing company. So now continue on, you kind of almost touched on it a bit, but I'm curious, what did you study at uni?
Yeah, so I did a double degree in law and commerce, and for the commerce part of the degree, I majored in accounting. In terms of why I decided to do those degrees, I think, again, it was just one of those things where through school, I realized that I was really interested in history, and I, funnily enough, enjoyed accounting. That was a subject that I could take through school. And, you know, even though it felt like you couldn't really marry those two things together, I think the commerce degree is kind of a way to bridge that gap, because it allows you to look at the business world and take subjects in business that really expand your knowledge on, you know, dealings in trade, you know, international trade, all that sort of stuff. That was very, I think, a way to extend my interest in those subjects. The law part of the degree, I would say, is more family driven, in the sense that my parents actually wanted me to do something, you know, a professional degree, not just a commerce degree. And so I didn't end up having the grades to get into medicine. That was probably their first choice. And so I decided to do a law degree as kind of the other option, and combined it. And in hindsight, I'm so grateful that my parents pushed me to do that, because it was certainly the starting point of, you know, realizing how much a law degree actually also feeds that knowledge. And, you know, if you're interested in anything from human behavior to history to politics to, you know, understanding how the world works, and in business, you know, I think a law degree certainly helps that part of it as well.
That's so cool. So you did a double degree, you know, followed what you love, which what you love. So everyone follow what you love. Just do what Joon did.
Yeah.
Continuing on, like, Joon, did your like studies impact what you wanted to do afterwards?
It did and it didn't. I think, you know, it did from the perspective that when you do a law degree, like I said, I think the interests that I had as a child, and, you know, understanding how the world works, understanding how business works, the studies help you formulate, I guess, a framework for how I think about my career going forward. So having done a law degree and a commerce degree, I think the helpful thing was, I think you can kind of do whatever you choose to do afterwards. But traditionally, the path that I thought I had to take was, you know, get qualified, become a practicing solicitor or barrister. And then, you know, that was sort of the starting point. But I realized when I was in law school, I did a couple of tax subjects as electives, and doing those tax subjects, you know, was kind of really unexpectedly enlightening, in the sense that I was able to see for the first time how much tax really gets you to understand not just our history as a, you know, as a society today, but it kind of builds this framework around how do people truly, you know, how do governments feel about our society today, what's important to invest in, you know, all these economic concepts of, you know, how to deal with our economy, and how the funding that is raised through tax revenue deals with some of those investments that we make as a country. But it also gives you this history of political ideas. So, you know, concepts of whether you believe in capitalism, socialism, you know, all these concepts kind of merge together in tax to give you a specific policy and a framework for government to deal with those issues. So, you know, that was the first time I realized actually tax is applicable not just to a career path, but it impacts my everyday life. And I think that was really where my love for tax as a concept really started. And I think that's when I started to think, hey, it would be interesting to get into this sort of area. And I did an internship with a Big Four as a result, you know, as a direct result of having done those subjects, realizing this might be something I want to explore further. So I definitely I think without having done those subjects, I probably would not have really pursued that specifically.
It's also cool to learn. I always only thought of tax as the thing my parents have to pay at the middle of the year, but it's cool to learn, the other aspects, which makes it interesting, which you weren't. So now I want to talk about your journey. We've kind of touched on your uni, what you studied now. What did the journey look like to Joon today, to Joon's role and job today?
Yeah, so definitely not straightforward. I think I mentioned before, after I graduated from university, I thought that I was really going to take a traditional, legal path and get qualified, try and get a job at a law firm, potentially go into contracts law, or, graduate and try and find a job in international law, work at The Hague or, at the UN. I mean, that's kind of the two streams that whenever you go through law school, those tend to be the options. But as it turns out, it was not that straightforward, because when you're going through law school, to get into a law firm straight away, you need to have done a lot of work experience. And when I graduated, I was still in New Zealand at the time. The opportunities were fairly limited if you didn't sort of have an automatic connection, or if you hadn't kind of gone through the normal, work experience stream through your university career. So I applied to a lot of jobs. It was ultra competitive. I didn't really get into anything straight away. So what I decided to do was volunteer work, because there were a lot of legal research services and, legal services, or legal aid, I guess you could call it, that were available to people who didn't necessarily have the means to, get a lawyer and get advice for themselves. And so I thought I'd, combine sort of that passion for volunteer and not-for-profit work with trying to get some of that work experience in a different way. So I, did some volunteer work through that channel. And I'm still to this day really grateful for those experiences, because they really just give you a good, strong sense of work ethic. It taught me about time management. It gave me a whole lot of humility, exposes you to a lot of people from different walks of life. And I think really makes you understand what it's like to work in a business from the ground up, and, working in a not-for-profit, what it's like when you have limited resources. So I think it really, I didn't kind of think about it at the time, but I think it really set me up for success going forward, because even when you work in a big organization, it's all about attitude, I think. And so those early years and, all the different odd jobs that I did, and, the volunteer work that I did, I think really helped to build that sense of, accountability and responsibility. So starting off, I wasn't directly employed by someone in a massive company straight away. And I then moved to Australia in 2006 from New Zealand. And
that's when I was born.
Yeah.
Just had to cut it.
Well, not quite. So, kind of getting there, but not quite, because even when I arrived in Australia, I was kind of fresh off the boat from New Zealand. Didn't have direct Australian experience. And I started work as a paralegal for a big law firm, and, started doing more of what I thought, or at least title-wise and job-wise, in a place where I thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I, worked for a law firm. I worked in disputes. It was a lot of litigation work, which means you're kind of working to resolve big disputes. And sometimes you go to court, sometimes you try to settle out of court, but that was the work I was doing. And realizing sort of a year and a bit into that actually this isn't really what I want to do. It's not, I know I did the law degree and, I'm qualified now and I am doing this work that's theoretically really great. And I have the, potential to kind of keep going, I guess, but it wasn't something that I was passionate about. And I think that's when I started to reset and think about what were the things that I'm interested in? What did I enjoy doing? And that's when I started, actually before that, while I was at the law firm, I had an opportunity to get seconded into the revenue department. So they had some work that was dealing with tax disputes. And it sort of, again, reminded me, hey, actually, there was this other, subject that I was interested in doing at uni, and, not necessarily from a tax disputes lens, but just the conceptual aspects of it, and remembering that I had done that internship at a Big Four, a while back, and remembering that, hey, maybe this is something that I should explore further. So I decided to kind of start from scratch again. I think a lot of people would say, that's strange. Why would you do that? But
it's hard to do
it was
that.
a way.
Good on you.
Yeah, it was a way to kind of start from scratch again. And so I applied for graduate programs again. So, I'd been working for a number of years already, but then I just thought, well, if I want to get in and really experience this and do this properly, I might as well do the grad program because, it gives you training and development, and you get to rotate and you get to see lots of different things. And so I did that, actually not thinking that I would get in, but I did. And interestingly, I think, a lot of the feedback that I got through the years when I started at the consulting firm was that the fact that I had worked before and the fact that, I had some of those other experiences really, I think, helped me to progress quicker than maybe some of my other peers. So in the end, I think I made up for that time. And
I think you would have gained a lot of value experience from, your volunteering as in the legal age. That's really amazing. That's really amazing. And then continue on.
Yeah. So, I think it just goes to show that sometimes you feel like you're taking a step back, but the fact is all your experiences in life, they still come with you. They still make you the person that you are, and they still contribute to the next role that you have. And so I certainly found that going into Big Four, that it wasn't lost. I didn't lose out just because I started again as a grad. I actually made up for that over time, and I think it's kind of served me well over my career, ironically. So that
definitely
one of the best decisions I made. And I think as I progressed through, I rotated through lots of different parts of the firm, and I think when you work in Big Four consulting, one of the things that always struck me was that I'm advising people on what they should do in their business, but I myself have never actually worked in one of the businesses that I'm advising. And, so there was, to me, it felt like, hey, there's this other skill set that, I want to know what it's like to live and breathe in a business and understand the challenges and issues that people are facing and trying to deal with day to day. And so I decided that I would try my hand at that and go in-house when, again, I think it was a lot of people that I spoke to at the time said, hey, this might be a risk because you're doing really well where you are, you're kind of progressing really well. Why would you want to go and take this role? And again, I went into a tax accountant role, which some would say, from a senior tax consultant to a tax accountant role, you're sort of going backwards. Why would you do that? But, it was going to a company that I had worked with or that I had been advising through my career at the Big Four. And so it felt like, I wasn't going to something completely unknown. And I knew that from working with the people there that they were very interested in my development. And, I knew that I would be able to, maybe not knew with certainty, but I knew that there would at least, even if it didn't work out, it's not like I'm throwing it away. I'm still going in-house to do tax. And so, I kind of trusted in my ability to take a leap out and do something else if it didn't work out, but I needed to just have faith and, take that leap of faith and do something to broaden my skill set. So yeah, the opportunity came up to go in-house. I went and I took that opportunity and went in-house to this global packaging manufacturer. And when I was with them, I would say I probably had some of the most expansive and rewarding experiences of my career because, it allowed me to travel. I was able to move with them to Singapore to start a regional tax function there. So, again, and yeah, travel all around Asia Pac, working with the various finance and sort of management teams during that setup. And so it was, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity, but then I'm also really glad that I took it and didn't sort of, worry about the risk of going backward, because I think it allowed me to grow. It gave me a lot of rewarding experiences. And again, even though people said I was going backwards, I ended up, I think, jumping ahead of my peers, and eventually to coming back to Melbourne after Singapore to become the head of tax in-house at another kind of packaging manufacturer. So, without that experience, I would never have been able to do that in the amount of time that, I was able to do that. And it was, let me learn what it was like to really work in industry, what it was like to work in manufacturing. It taught me all about the packaging industry. It was dealing in something that was tangible, something that I was very proud of, and led to a lot of very rewarding kind of experiences and connections with people that I otherwise would not have been exposed to at, senior management board experiences, learning about strategy and business, learning about, how packaging is really fundamental to our day-to-day life. Yeah, some of the, inside stories to, I guess, what it's really like to be running a business and trying to deliver a product to a customer in the long term. So that was kind of 10-ish years of my life doing that.
That's very quick. No, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, at the end of that stint, I had my second child. So I had my little boy, and while I was on maternity leave, interestingly enough, I actually was contacted by CSL. So this was while I was on
headhunted.
Yes. And it was just, such a dream to be contacted for this role here, because one, it was CSL. How could I, say no to that?
Just a little company,
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm pretty sure that conversation when I got that call was literally, she said, "I'm from CSL. Okay, where do I, how do I interview?" Even though, again, theoretically, I was doing a job that was, probably the dream job to have if you're in tax, heading up a tax function for a globally listed company. But yeah, with CSL, it was a chance to kind of finally get into the health sector. And, I think I mentioned before, my parents always wanted me to be a doctor, and, I'm not. So this is my
fulfilling that. That's your way of fulfilling that.
Small part of being part of, I can at least say I'm in the healthcare sector. And Yeah, and again, even though the role is not the head of tax role, it's still looking after the regional team, and it was a chance to be part of this industry. It was a chance to learn. There was so much more to absorb. The fact that value-wise, we help patients all around the globe every day, delivering, these really important life-saving products to them. And to me, the really big thing was the value set. So, the CSL values were really important to me coming into it, and I'm really proud to be able to say that I, was asked to come on board and be part of this, massively successful story. So that's kind of how I am, have gotten to where I am now, and almost 2 years in now, but really enjoying it, and just very grateful for the opportunity to kind of finally combine all these things that I'm passionate about.
No, but great to hear your journey, and you've kind of given us a bit of insights throughout talking so far, but like, what does CSL actually do? Like, tell us about it.
Yeah, so CSL is a very, old, very respected Australian kind of company, as you mentioned before. It started its life as the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories here in Australia, and it was established in 1916
Long time ago.
as part of, yes, a very long time ago, in World War I, actually. And it was a chance for Australia, I guess, to have onshore manufacturing capabilities, because, Australia being so far away from the world, it was sort of an opportunity for us to get access to these medicines here locally. Over time, so it started out life as sort of a government department, and then it grew to include access to very important kind of medical products, including things like insulin, penicillin, which is an antibiotic that's, very important in our everyday lives today. And then it now does, vaccines against the flu, polio, other infectious diseases. And one of the things that people may or may not know is that CSL is, still the only onshore flu vaccine manufacturer in Australia today. And it is the only global player in producing antivenoms. So whenever you have a snake bite, or a spider bite, or other sort of marine animals, CSL produces an antivenom to help save loss of life against that. And an interesting anecdote here, and this is, I was very proud of this. I took my son to the museum. If you go to the museum and you go to the Melbourne Museum and you go to the insects display, there is, it actually talks about the fact that CSL produces these antivenoms, and that it is, one of the main reasons why there is no longer any loss of life from snake bites.
That's so cool. That's in the museum.
Australia. So it's, it's a very important part of Australian history. And, since then, it's obviously developed into this massive global biotechnology player. One of the main parts of our business is as a plasma fractionator. So for people who don't know what plasma is, it's something that's derived from blood. It is something that we collect primarily from plasma centers in the United States. We turn that plasma into products to be able to save, patients suffering from rare diseases. So that they could be suffering from hemophilia or other kind of immune related diseases. So that plasma is turned into products that help them. And CSL is a company now that is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. So it was privatized and listed. Those are sort of some of the major products that it delivers. The other really important part of what we do now is the research and development that we do, because we want to continue to innovate to find other life-saving therapies that could help patients around the world. And so the research and development organization in CSL is a very fundamental and important part of us being able to continue to deliver, that promise to patients globally. Some stats, I guess, for those who don't know CSL, we operate in over 35 countries around the world. We've grown to 25,000 or so employees around the world. So, fairly large. Out of those 25,000 people, 1,700 of those are research and development people. So again, very important part of our business. And last year we did about $10 billion in revenue.
That's a big number.
Pretty big number.
Oh.
And we spent around $1 billion in research and development. So again, you can see how important it is to our business. But that's CSL in a nutshell.
No, and CSL, does such amazing things, as you said, makes really important medicines, vaccines. And, how does that make you feel, Joon, that you are behind this team, working with them to really do something really good for all of these communities?
Yeah, well, really good. It's, I'm very, very proud to be able to say I do this. I'm very proud of the fact that we help people's lives. We make their lives better, and we're
save
always
lives.
trying to find, yes, and we are trying to find ways of making their lives, continuing to make their lives better in other innovative ways. So it's certainly something that I'm very, very proud to be able to add my name to the list of CSL employees, for sure.
No, that's so cool. Now, going on to wrap up the podcast, I was hoping, if you've obviously done amazing things, and I thought it'd be amazing to have you give a piece of advice to viewers, who perhaps want to go out there, do positive things through their career like yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I was going to give you two pieces of advice.
Oh,
actually.
true, bonus! Yay.
The one thing, and this is one hopefully that has come through in my career, take a chance, go out of your comfort zone once in a while, do something that people might think is not a linear progression, because you never know where it may lead you further down the track. I mean, I think that's one thing that I can say has benefited me. And the other one is, never stop being curious and learning, because you even when you're the CEO of a business, I think it's really about asking the right questions, learning more about what people are doing, and being able to share that knowledge and have a conversation with people. So, connection with someone else, listening, learning. I mean, these are all things that they don't stop when you leave school. So it's something that's very important and will continue to serve you through the rest of your life.
So thank you so much, Joon. That was amazing, this piece of advice, and just hearing about your experiences and your journey now to CSL has been a real joy and privilege. So thank you so much, Joon, again for coming on.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
No, and thank you everyone for listening or watching. And make sure to interact in the comments if you want any questions for Joon or want to comment on anything. It'll be good to see your interactions. But thank you, Joon, again.